We'll probably give it a minute while people settle in. Feel that's about organizing. We'll go to the Q&A. Is that okay? Sounds good. Maybe like 30, 40 minutes max. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you in?
No, I'm PW, SJP, and JP.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I know. I've seen you in the alum chat.
Okay.
Excuse me, everyone. We're going to get started in a minute, so please make your way back to your seats so we can begin the Q&A session. All right. Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking around till the end. It was a very difficult movie to watch. I really commend you for sitting. I was in the back. I had to keep going back and forth because the emotions were getting too strong, and I was on the verge of tears every couple of minutes. So I really commend you for being able to sit through for the duration of the film. I also want to welcome our online guests who are joining us now. Thank you so much for being here for this Q&A session with the co-director of the Encampments, Kai Pritsker. Again, my name is Fadi Kafiti. I'm the executive director of the Jerusalem Fund for Education and Community Development. We're an independent grassroots 501c3 based in the United States that provides direct relief and assistance to communities in need in Palestine while working to increase educational awareness and consciousness on Palestine here in the United States. All of our events are free and open to the public, and virtually all of them are live streamed. So we encourage you to check us out on our social medias, and 100% of your donations go towards supporting our mission for Palestinians in need. So we're very grateful for your support. As I said, we're joined here for the post-screening Q&A session with Kai Pritsker. Kay Pritsker, sorry, who's a journalist at Breakthrough News, who have generously agreed to collaborate on this event with us. We're very grateful to Breakthrough News and especially Eugene Puryear for making this happen. So thank you so much for being here with us, Kay. It's an honor to host you back in at our center and here in DC. I just want to start off with a few questions. Then our incredible intern Soph will have some questions from her organizing experience in the at the encampments, and then we'll turn to the audience for this Q&A session. So, um, to get our discussion going, could you please tell our audience a little bit about how this project started and when your involvement and BT's News's involvement began in all this?
Yeah, sure. Um, as was said, as was said in the introduction, I'm just gonna take this. As was said in the introduction, I'm a reporter primarily. So I'm a reporter for Breakthrough News, and I'm not a filmmaker. I've never made a film. I don't want to be a filmmaker. I don't want to do any of these things. But um, I was there reporting on the student protests. Student protest has been, a very important part of my life. I was in the SJP at GW, like right across the street. So, when this iteration of the genocide began, I was covering all the protests, but I was up there at Columbia and you saw actually some of like that opening scene where the students are protesting the banning of SJP and JVP. That was from my first report at Columbia. So I was there initially as a reporter, and I had made contact with the students and I got to know the student leaders and so forth. And they reached out to me when they were setting up their encampment and they said, "Hey, the administration's not listening to us. They're not taking our demands seriously. We feel the need to escalate our campaign, so we're going to set up this encampment. Can you come and cover it as a journalist?" So I agreed. So I showed up there on the first day on April 17th, and as you saw in the footage, I mean, I was expecting to just do a short report and leave. And, that night, that was when you saw that scare about this NYPD sweep coming through. I decided, okay, I should probably stay here overnight and see if it actually happens. And obviously, it came the next morning. Uh, and that was obviously those arrests were the catalyzing event for the global encampment movement. And I mean, it was literally a matter of hours after the students were arrested the first time that encampments just started popping up across America and the world. So yeah, that's when I asked the students, "Hey, can I stay here with you guys?" And they gave me a tent and sleeping bag, all that. So I stayed there for the next 12 days. But even after that, for many months after that, I was just preparing like a news report about Colombia and sort of pushing back on the lies about the encampment. I finished it. It was a 27-minute report, which is very long by my standards, but my editor in chief was like, "Hey, maybe we should send this to our friends at Watermelon Pictures, who were the folks that helped distribute the film." And we sent them that report that I had made, and they were like, Please don't publish this. Like, we want to sort of do it justice." So, I was reluctantly dragged into this process of, filmmaking, which is a very new world to me, bizarre world.
Thank you so much for that, Kay. The next question I wanted to ask is, could you please discuss the historical significance of filming this on Columbia, both as a site of progressive student organizing and an institution that is historically and continues to support the most reactionary, vile apartheid and genocidal regimes of both this century and the last? I mean, as you know, Columbia, one of the first anti-Nazi arrests on U.S. campuses was at Columbia, 1935, 36, something like that. I can't remember. And as well, the same with the anti-Vietnam protests and apartheid South Africa and the like. So could you please talk about the historical significance of it taking place at Columbia?
Yeah, I mean, and it's something that Jamal Joseph touches on in the film where he says, Colombia is always, they actually celebrate the 1968 protests today. They celebrate that. They celebrate the anti-apartheid protests that in 1985. They teach about these moments in their core curriculum. So they brag about how, oh, the students at Columbia, they're so progressive, they're so forward thinking, they were ahead of the curve. They are on the cutting edge of history. They don't mention that they were fighting against the university's own complicity in these crimes, but they celebrate these things. But ironically, they are having that same 1968 or 1985 moment right now, and they're repeating the same mistakes that they did in 1968 and 1985. Um, and it is significant because Columbia and all these Ivy League schools, any of these elite colleges, I mean, they are the factories that reproduce the ruling classes of society. I mean, especially the students at Columbia, they're going there on the premise that if you go through this institution, you will be rewarded. You'll be these pets of the ruling class. You'll get a nice job. You'll get this fancy title. You'll be respected in society, whatever that means. And you get all these, you're bribed with all this blood money and all these shiny little things. And that's the way it's always been, obviously. I mean, any, elite school in this country, that is sort of the expectation, that you will be rewarded in exchange for your cooperation and your contributions to the status quo and the ongoing sort of imperialist war machine. So I think what's so significant about the student protest happening at Columbia and across, all these colleges, whether they be elite or not, is that all these students were essentially rejecting this bribe, this dance with the devil, so to speak, this trading your soul. They were saying no, like we refuse all of that. In fact, we don't care if you smear us. We don't care if we never get a job again. We don't care if you throw us in jail. We don't care about any of these things. We care about Gaza, and that's it. And we'll do anything in our power to fight for Gaza and to just, bring it back home to the US and wake people up. So I mean, they were essentially turning their back on one of the hardest things to turn your back on, which is the temptation of, just being a self-serving asshole. Excuse my language, but that is essentially that's what this system is built on, is people selling each other out and just, caving to your desire to just be to serve yourself.
Thank you, Kay. I have a lot of questions and I can keep going, but in the interest of time, we're gonna pass first to our incredible summer intern, one of our incredible summer interns, Soph, who was involved in GW organizing and the encampment movement, and then we'll turn to our audience members. So
Thank you. First, I want to say, you've heard it a million times, but incredible work, truly. It's crazy to see and feel and re-experience the parallels that so many students globally were facing. My first question was kind of touched upon in the film, but one of the accomplishments at the DMV University for Gaza at George Washington University was the dismantlement of divides between any existing divides between community organizers and students. And it's interesting to me that the student intifada has been in the spotlight of American empire, and we've been kind of highlighted in this role and tasked with this responsibility. But at the end of the day, we are still students, and we are actively learning from our movement elders, from our revolutionary predecessors, from Palestine. And we have to do that with humility. So I was wondering if this was a trend you saw across other universities, these divides being eradicated, and what you see from this as implication for the future of the movement, for our ability to struggle together, unite together. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely saw this, and I think the most telling example of this is that not just Columbia, but all these schools were trying to create this fake dichotomy of the students versus the outside agitators, and like, oh, well, the students, they can protest, but the problem is that these outside people want to join them and are instigating them, and it makes it sound like these universities funding a genocide is some issue that only students should care about, as if we all don't have a vested interest in that too. And, obviously it goes without saying that most of these universities are huge players in local real estate markets or in local politics, or, obviously they have huge sums of capital that they just throw around and invest in whatever. So it's not like they don't affect us, and it's not like we're not, we're not stakeholders in what they're doing. So they try to create these arbitrary boundaries, and I mean, especially with the encampment in Washington, D.C., which was an encampment that combined all of the schools in the region, which when I was at GW, I mean, that was a huge divide. Just, I mean, it's not like anyone was dividing us intentionally, maybe, but I mean, the schools never came together like that. So when I saw that, that was just like, I mean, it was truly incredible. And, um, I think I mean, the fact that, for example, in 1968, you had a similar dynamic, but I mean, the students at Columbia, obviously their main demands had to do with Palestine, but it's not like they weren't aware of the fact that Colombia was like very like deeply harmful to the local community in Harlem, and would talk about that, and had professors, Jamal Joseph, he came to speak. I mean, they had people come to the encampment to talk about how Colombia is hurting people right in their own backyard. So I mean, yeah, I think the students were very aware of the fact that this is not a fight for, themselves or even just for Palestine. It's a fight for all of the people that have been wronged by these universities.
Definitely. And then the second question that I was thinking about is more, I guess, logistically based, but what did the political calculus look like when you were filming and then choosing to release this footage with the knowledge that it may be then weaponized to target student organizers, faculty, community members? What was the risk-benefit analysis there?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I'll say that everyone in this film who spoke or like played any substantial role, anyone who appeared in a significant way, signed a release waiver. So they, consented to being in the film, and we showed them what scene they were in, and how they would appear and stuff like that. And then after Mahmoud was abducted, we had all these requests from this was shortly after Mahmoud was taken, we decided to put the film out, but we got a bunch of requests like in that week from students in like student groups in New York City, basically saying, "Hey, like, am I in this film? Is my friend in this film? Blah blah blah." Like, so we actually went through a very painstaking process of, not, I mean, it was a labor of love, but it was a very laborious process of going through every scene and basically blotting out faces of people who didn't want to appear for one reason or another, but. The reason we put the film out is because, I mean, on a very pragmatic note, the footage that we were putting forward is just like a drop in the bucket of all of the footage of the encampment online. Like, quite frankly, if someone wanted to really identify like people that were there, I mean, it's not like this footage would really make a difference. But the other thing is, we can't be sort of like forced into silence or submission. I mean, the whole deportation campaign is designed to make us afraid to protest. And if we were to say, "Oh, well, if we put this out, there might be certain risks, therefore we're not going to put it out," we've essentially like then they've won. That because this is exactly what their campaign is designed to do. So we did want to put it out, and um, I think everyone that is involved in this movement knows they're taking risks. I mean, the students were very aware of that. A lot of them, when we approached them about the waivers, they wanted to be in the film because, quite frankly, they're not thinking about, their degree getting rescinded or this, that, or the other. I mean, they were aware that that was a risk, but the only thing that's going to matter in 5 years or 10 years from now is what were you doing during the Palestinian Holocaust? And that's the only question anyone's going to ask. No one's going to ask, "Oh, well, did you get your degree from Columbia University?" That's just not going to be uh, the historical legacy of this moment. And I think a lot of people wanted to register their opposition to the genocide. People wanted to say, "I was there. I spoke out when so many people were too cowardly to do it.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that refusal to capitulation.
Thank you so much. We'll now turn to the audience. Okay, would you rather have one question at a time, or would you like to collect a couple and respond to them?
I think one at a time.
Okay, wonderful. So we'll take Stack. Our wonderful intern at the back, Silas, will be passing on a mic. Please just state your name and your question. And, you know, there are a lot of people who want to ask, so please try and keep your questions rather short, of course. We'll start at the front here. So that's the first question. Was at the front.
The family.
The microphone, by the way, is so that our people online can hear us. Just a moment. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Oh,
Yeah.
there it is. Okay. Steve France, Washington, D.C. activist, kind of journalist on this issue. What about the families, the parents, the grandparents, my generation, and others? Did they, did they support? Did they come in and say, I'm with my daughter or my son, and this is what we meant to do when we were young and idealistic and were really inspired, or do they just hang back?
I mean, well, the thing was, I mean, at least Columbia blocked off all the entrances. So after a certain period, like only students could get in. But I mean, there were a lot of, I mean, there were people of all different generations outside, like protesting at the gates every single day. And in New York, yeah, the protest movement has been multi-generational. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think this is really an age thing, to be honest. Like, I mean, I've seen that so much in the screenings, at all the protests. I mean, it is truly a multi-generational thing. How could it not be? I mean, this has nothing to do with, age. I think anyone, I mean, anyone that can see, anyone who isn't, anyone who can see what's happening, I think is called to action. But
But were there parents who,
of students.
I've had, my family's pissed off with me, or they're saying, what are you doing? You're throwing it all away.
No, I never heard that. No, no. I mean, I mean, a lot of students were like, my parents don't know I'm here. So maybe that could have been it, but
Yes, in the back, please. We'll get to all the questions, I promise.
Hi, I guess this is on. I was wondering, and maybe you can't reveal this, I know you went to some lengths to protect one of the individuals whose head did not appear in the shot, but he had such valuable information, the man who was identified as having something to do with, quote, communications,
Mhm.
and he was reporting back to someone, and he was the person who said a couple of students, spoke with him, and he reported back what they had said, and he was asked what was the color of their skin, that person.
yeah.
He had a lot of information that would be such good rebuttals to a lot of what we hear in the media about, quote, anti-Semitism and what was going on the campuses. Who was he reporting back to? Because I think it's shocking that they didn't respond to the information that he was providing.
Yeah. He was reporting back to the communications department of one of the colleges at Columbia. Like, yeah, yeah.
There was a hand at the front, and then we'll turn over there, please.
Hi, I'm Ken Meyercord. Congratulations on a powerful and very well-made movie. I have a suggestion, sort of, especially for you, Ms. Saf. One of the constants of any protest movement is the presence of what are called agents provocateurs permeating the movement, and their role. They're usually in the employ of the state, but they could have private interests as well. And their role is to provoke the protesters to act rashly and illegally. Because once you get arrested, your ability to act is severely constrained by the courts. It has a very symbolic and powerful effect, as we saw in the encampments that people reacted to the students and other protesters getting arrested by forming their own encampments. But the encampments, I don't know what the encampments are like today. They're supposed to never leave them. So, and you have to weigh the benefit of your being inconvenienced by an arrest with, or the impact of your actions on the general public who are not on your side necessarily, not necessarily opposed to you either, but just aren't involved. And whether you're alienating those people, for instance, like by blocking a highway, a lot of commuters whose commute is interfered with are not likely to be won over to your side by an action like that. So I have one idea that I've been tossing around that would have a positive or at least neutral effect on the onlookers and not interfere with their lives. And that would be to fly kites on the mall. Kites adorned with the colors of the Palestinian flag with a tail that says "Save the Gaza" or something. And imagine 100 kites like that flying in the air with all the tourists around and whatnot. It's reach a lot more people than the settlement, the encampment at GW did. Anyway, I've would be happy to share whatever experience I can from having organized an event on the mall. There are rules you have to follow there too. If anyone is interested in whatever I can offer.
Thank you. It was a question over there, and then we'll turn to the round over here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jelena. I also went to GW. I have a technical question for Kay. So you probably, I know you've like had hundreds of hours of footage. So how did you decide what to keep and what to get rid of in terms of telling the story? And I'm sure it was that a difficult process.
Yeah, so we had like, I don't know. I actually don't even, I think we had like 20 hours of footage because again, I wasn't shooting with a film in mind when we were filming, but so we used like pretty much all of it, like everything from Colombia. So that was, we actually had very little to work with, funny enough. Um, but as far as what to keep, and I mean, that's just sort of the impossible process. But I guess the one thing I will say is, with very limited time, we were trying to stick to our goal, which was to basically dispel the myths of the encampment and of the Palestine movement in the eyes of not really the movement and the people who are already in it, but like that sort of outer layer of people who are kind of on the fence, or like maybe they know someone who protests, but they don't really know what Palestine's about. So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here were like, oh, okay, I know, about the Nakba, I know about, this, that, and the other. But really, this film was intended to win people over who don't already support Palestine, who are still, sort of don't know everything about the issue, or who do buy into these lies about anti-Semitism. So, yeah, we try to keep that in mind at all moments when we were cutting, and I think that was sort of our North Star. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Neha. I'm an organizer at GW. I was a negotiator during the GW encampment, and I just wanted to thank you for creating and like working on this film. It was very moving, and like the parallels between our encampment and the Columbia encampment was just really incredible to see how many connections there were. Something that happened a lot during the encampment was, we would continually try to center, because we would try to, ensure that Palestine was part of every sentence that we said, that we were focusing, like making sure that everybody who knew about the encampment knew that we were not leaving until, divestment for Palestine, like centering, because, but consistently, like the media narrative would, clip pieces, and rearrange it in a way that would decenter Palestine and center the student movement. And so my question is, when producing this film, which is, entitled The Encampments, how did you guys work to facilitate a balance, a recentering of Gaza, which I think you guys did really well, but what went into that process? And this is something Breakthrough News does very well. So I was just curious on how you navigated this.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously the whole point of the film was, I mean, obviously there were many intentions behind the film, but really one of the central intentions was to remind people this is what the students were actually fighting for, because you've heard every single explanation under the sun. Oh, they hate Jews. They're just kids who want to show their friends how radical they are. They just saw a TikTok and they don't know anything and they're just like they want to skip class, whatever. You heard every single explanation given except for the actual stated reason the students were like screaming at the top of their lungs. So, I mean, the intention behind the film was to remind people, just not by being ham-fisted, but just by showing what is actually happening in Gaza, what the students were fighting for. And the film, I mean, we tried to sort of use the fascination around the encampments to do that because unfortunately, people, the media, and a lot of people don't seem to really care about all of the war crimes, the genocides committed in the name of this country, using our taxpayer money until it somehow affects them back at home. And, we saw the encampment movement really as, I guess, like the honey that would allow us to remind people, hey, this is about Palestine. This isn't about, the students are not saying this is about them. Like, the students are the ones saying this is about Palestine, and we wanted to sort of use this social phenomenon that obviously garnered a lot of attention to just bring it back to that. But that was always, yeah, that was always our sort of primary goal, was to remind people like what this movement was really about. Yeah. Yeah.
But for the audience, could you use the mic, please?
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. My follow-up question is, what was it like, working with people in Gaza for this film, working with Bisan and, people who are experiencing this genocide every single day, and navigate the conditions that the students are experiencing are not the same as what people in Gaza are experiencing. So, making sure we're not, how did you make sure that you didn't conflate those, and also like how did you navigate working with the people in Gaza for this film?
Well, I mean, I don't know that. I think anyone trying to conflate those things is like being willfully ignorant, to be honest. Like, I think anyone who's trying to say that these students are doing it for attention or they're doing it for like to like pat themselves on the back or anything, I think they're just speaking purely in bad faith. Like, the students themselves are the ones saying, what we're going through, the disciplinary process, all this is a drop in the bucket compared to what's happening in Gaza, which is exactly why they're doing it and exactly why they're throwing away their whatever their academic careers, quote unquote. So I think anyone who's saying that is, quite frankly, like, not, I think they're intentionally skewing the issue. But I mean, as far as working with people in Gaza, I mean, I mean, I've never had to work with anyone and like wonder, is this person going to be alive tomorrow? And I didn't work with Bisan. I don't, I tried texting her a few times. She didn't respond for obvious reasons. She's, in a living hell. But that was Watermelon that had the connection to her. I worked very closely with our videographer, not our, she doesn't work for Break. Well, she obviously, we had a videographer, Rawaida Amer, who shot all the footage from Gaza that you saw in the film, like the high quality footage. And yeah, I mean, honestly, it's hard to really even, like, it's hard to know what to even say to someone, when you're just working together via WhatsApp. And like that, and that's a really conflicting part of this whole film, is like, I'm glad people enjoy it. I'm glad people like feel like it's making a difference, but the genocide's getting worse. Like everything that is described in this film is actually worse today. So it's like, I don't, it's hard to even know what to say to someone that is going through that besides like, I don't know, like I hope tomorrow is a better day, but yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions over here, Silas, starting with Penny and then the person in front, and then we'll turn that way.
Hi, Penny Mitchell. Quick question. What are the plans for distribution? I know I tried to see the film when it first came out and it was hard to find it places. And I'd like to advertise through my networks about where people can see it. And if you'll be able to have it also online. I just saw a film last week on the attacks on Gaza journalists, and they've taken it down everywhere on the internet. So they're trying to, do different ways of distribution. So if there's anything that we all can help with too, I'm sure we'd be willing to.
Well, it's on Apple TV now, which I learned today. Yeah. So, funny how that happens. But so you can watch it there, I guess. It's being distributed by Watermelon Pictures, so it's now premiering in the UK and Ireland, in Canada, in Kenya, I think. But you can also request a screening on Watermelon Pictures website. If you fill out a screening form, they'll be in touch with you if you want to like show it in a setting like this, which honestly I recommend because you have a discussion, like you can't pause the film like you could if you were at home. You got to sit there and watch it. But I think it's good to watch it with other people. But yeah, so either you can request a screening or you can just watch it on Apple TV. Yeah.
Colin Davies. I was wondering if you had an opportunity to interview the Colombia president, because I was astounded. I mean, I saw her presentation to Congress and what you had in this film, how she seemed to have no idea of the dynamics. I mean, along with the chief of police, but how she seemed to have no idea of the dynamics of the situation.
Yeah, I sent her an email, no response.
So we had a question over here, and then we'll turn to the center again.
Thank you. This is another distribution question. How is the distribution, or how has the publicity been? And then one of the key actors, Minor, the student Miner, is actually Jewish, and he was the one that had his diploma withheld. And so my question is, the distribution, I know that you can contact Watermelon to have it done in a church or a civic group, but has there been any sort of reviewing and critique of it? It's a wonderful film. I think it's almost prophetic because of the First Amendment issues that are coming. My name is Mary Nesnick, by the way. And I think that it's even more powerful today with the genocide that's ramping up.
Yeah, I mean, the distribution is being, done by Watermelon Pictures. I honestly really don't understand this side of the film world, but they, seem to be getting it places, and, apparently it's, doing well as far as documentaries go. I really can't speak to it. I really don't understand this stuff, to be honest, but, yeah, I mean, and as far as reviews, I mean, it's been reviewed in certain places. The New Yorker, which was, you know, I don't know. I mean, my dad grew up reading that, so I was like, oh, that's funny. My dad reads that. But, it's been reviewed a bunch of places, but I don't really know. I don't really. It's yeah, it is what it is. It's being reviewed. It's been reviewed a lot. Yeah.
Before we turn to the next question, I will say that we at the Jerusalem Fund purchased most of the films at Watermelon Pictures, and we're doing multiple screenings of each. So a couple of weeks ago, we did From Ground Zero. Now, obviously, the Encampments. We're going to do a second screening for both films, and then in July, we're going to do the next set. So if that's at least can help some of our audience members here get to watch this film and let their friends know, we'll definitely be doing an Encampment screening perhaps towards the end of the month or maybe in 3 weeks' time. So just letting everyone know. Yeah, there's a question in the back.
I just wanted to know what your plans are for the future with the film and just with your career in general.
I have no future plans. I mean, really, like again, I think it's great that this film that people like the film, and I think it's great that people find it useful as a resource. I hope people are using it to, win people over to our side, but at the same time, like I would just like to move. I just want to keep reporting and like I want to keep moving forward. Because this film doesn't mean anything if it doesn't contribute to the cause, if it doesn't, further the cause. And I mean, again, like I understand this is my job, yes. But I do this again. I mean, I feel like I would be doing this in my own way, even if I were working somewhere else. Like I don't, I know it is my career technically, but I don't like to think of it that way. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just gonna keep like telling the truth about Zionism, and I'm just gonna keep criticizing Zionism until, something stops me. So, huh?
Way to go.
Way to go. Oh, thank you.
We have a question from Leith, and then we're gonna turn around again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was involved at the University of Toronto, the encampment, and I saw the way that outside groups like PYM were involved in setting up in supporting the students, and you kind of a little bit highlighted that with showing the demonstrators outside of Columbia. My question was, to your knowledge, what role did like PYM and within our lifetime, what role did they play? How did their they differentiate in supporting the encampment? And as well, what did you see many other student organizations after the encampment was sort of successful in its spread across the country, in other groups at Columbia? How active were they in supporting the encampment on campus? Yeah.
Yeah. The effort from the outside was really important because I mean, they were providing food and water, and blankets and tents and all that was coming from outside. And B, I mean, because Colombia had basically turned itself into a police state, it was really important that there be people on the outside that the media could talk to and could like basically articulate the Palestinian cause and explain what we're doing there. So that was really indispensable. And PYM did a lot of things that, I mean, I don't know that we need to get into specifics, but they basically helped the encampment a lot. So that was crucial. And they were also helping, they were helping all of the encampments in New York, and I'm sure in DC and everywhere they are. They're really a tremendous group. And within our lifetime, I mean, they were doing rallies, like they were marching around the campus all the time, which was again crucial because I think if the raid on Hind Hall had happened without the outside, if people had basically abandoned the Columbia campus itself, I think it would have happened under much less scrutiny, and the school would have just felt like, oh, we can steamroll these students and everything will be fine. I think the presence of people outside, just made it that much more serious. And then, sorry, your second question was about other students. Yeah, so there were, I mean, I would say the main other student organization was actually the student union, Student Workers of Columbia, which Grant Miner was the president of. He's a graduate student worker. And the union was very crucial in supporting the encampment. I mean, they literally sent hundreds of people to the encampment to like do a picket around the camp when they thought arrests were coming. So that was incredible. And you know, they were basically saying, I mean, we work for this school, and you know, the fact that you're threatening to expel people for their totally constitutional right to, you know, speech, especially student workers, we feel is a threat to our is a violation of our contract. So that was really important. I'm sure there were a lot of other student organizations that were like supporting the encampment formally, but I mean, people were just showing up, and there were so many people there that I don't even know if they were like involved in a student organization, but people were just showing up. So it's kind of hard to say. I'm sure they were there, but honestly, yeah, I don't know.
I'll take a step back now because the next question's from
Oh.
here.
It's not a question, but I want to let you know that in Greenbelt, Mary and I are from Greenbelt. I'm Kathy. And we have what's called a committee called Peace and Justice. And every month they do a monthly free film at the New Deal Cafe. And this one is going to be the Palestine exception. So if anybody's interested.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Silas, we have a question in the middle here. Well, both of you.
This isn't a question either. This is actually a response to one of the questions before. So I was a student, I was actually a student at the Columbia encampment, and one of the biggest things that helped keep up the morale and like also prevent the school from like sweeping the encampment immediately was the presence of the outside organizations, which they like to name like outside agitators and stuff. But one of the biggest organizations that was helpful at the time was Within Our Lifetime, and they were showing up like literally every day until 4 or 5 a.m. Like I was my dorm was on the street right outside the entrance of Columbia, and I would see people getting arrested at like 4 a.m. because they would continue to protest, and the cops were just like pissed off that they were still there and wouldn't leave them alone or wouldn't stop bothering them, I guess. But so they really helped with keeping up morale. They really helped with yeah, bringing in resources from outside, like food, blankets, that sort of thing. And then also, I guess, in terms of student organizations, the Quad is what they call it, See Apartheid Divest. That's a coalition that was started in, I believe, October or November of 2023, shortly after the Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace at Columbia were suspended. It was a coalition made up of over 100 student organizations that really represented like thousands and thousands of students at Columbia. And it was all of these student organizations signing on to basically this commitment to pushing for divestment from the genocide. So we really had the support. So at that point, support for ending the genocide had touched all parts of campus, really, because it had already touched so many student clubs. And so I think that played a big role in also getting students to participate in the encampment. But I think another thing that really was the catalyst for many students getting involved, especially in the second encampment, as you could see, like the second lawn got taken over. I think a lot of people were just so alarmed with the violence of the police and just the fact that, you know, police and riot gear had come and just arrested 100 of their fellow students. Thank you.
We have one last question down here from the middle.
Great film, thank you. So I'm the mother of a student activist who spent many days in an encampment in the UK. And to answer your question, as a parent, I'm extremely proud and extremely worried. So I guess my question is to you and any of the students, what do you think is next? There's the backlash is horrible. You know, the cause is still there. Where do you think this is going to push forward the concept of disclosing and divesting?
I mean, the chants that we do, they're not just slogans or chants, they are truth to us. We will not rest until they divest. Whether that requires escalation or not is for the future to tell. I'm graduating, so I'll be finding myself within the community organizations in that transition. But it is very earnest that whatever measures need to be taken will be taken. The students refuse to capitulate. No amount of repression has worked. I think it was said in the film as well, the more repression that the students faced, the higher the agitation, the more support they received, and the more students kept showing up and were fortified in their struggle. So with the knowledge that nothing we face is anywhere comparable to the conditions in Gaza and all of Palestine, there is an absolute refusal to stop until all of Palestine is liberated.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, I really think if you've met these students, I think they, that's one thing about this film that we were also trying to combat is this idea that the students are like naive or that they're like that they just learned about this on TikTok. No, like these students are very, very organized, very dedicated. I mean, the willing to sacrifice everything they're being told they're given by the society, i.e., like a degree or a career or whatever, like willing to part with it in a heartbeat to stop a genocide. I mean, I don't think any of these students, I mean, you just heard these students are not going to stop. But I also think, where is this headed? I mean, I really do think this is, and it's, obviously this can be hard to believe or to say in in a moment like this, but I really do think that this is an irreversible moment for Zionism. I mean, there's no undoing, there's no unseeing what the world has seen. And there was a poll that came out recently that showed that Israel is the most hated country in the world, which, I mean, should come as no surprise to anyone, and that's only going to continue. There was another poll that said that the majority of Americans now have a negative view of Israel. This has never happened before. So, despite everything, I mean, things are obviously the worst they've ever been in Palestine, and which is hard to say given the entire history, but I think we all knew, whether or not we knew, I think we all knew deep down that taking on a country like Israel they were never going to go down without a fight. I mean, they were going to go kicking. They were never going to just willingly walk off the stage and just give up their ethno state, their apartheid, all this. They were always going to go kicking and screaming. They were always going to go out this way. And quite frankly, like, I think the way they're just making it illegal to talk about Palestine now is like the greatest indication of their weakness. I mean, the fact that they're actually trying to ban protests for Palestine. They're trying to ban Palestine studies. They're trying to ban books about Palestine. They're literally, I think Israel is now the only country you can get deported for criticizing. Like, I mean, it's reaching a point of absolute absurdity, but it's not absurd when you consider the fact that Israel has completely lost the debate. They've lost the battle of ideas. They've lost the future generation, which obviously you saw in this film. So the only thing they have left to resort to is censorship and just make it illegal to talk about Palestine. But as far as like one practical thing I do want to say is I do think, and if we're thinking about how to stop the genocide practically, I do think there's one thing we need to be sensitive to and cognizant of, which is that we've spent a lot of time in the last 19 months, I think, sort of like making appeals to the same sector of society, that sort of progressive left wing, people that would tend to already have like reason to agree with us. But realistically speaking, the only way to stop the genocide like tomorrow is for American support for Israel to stop. And the only way to do that is to bring this country together around this issue and to impress upon people that this is not a left-right issue. In fact, many issues in this country, this whole left-right, red-blue divide is a fake divide. And a lot of issues, whether it be Palestine or housing or healthcare or anything, these are not Republican, Democrat issues. These are issues of humanity. And I think there are a lot of people in this country who still don't know the most basic things about Palestine. And that's okay because they've been brainwashed by the media. But it's our job to speak to these people and to to actually attack and confront the Islamophobia and just the war propaganda that they've been fed for the last 20 years. So I think we have a lot of work to do.
Before this event comes to a close, please allow me to make a very few brief remarks. I mean, obviously, it goes without saying that we at the Jerusalem Fund call for and demand the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil so that he can return to his wife and be united with his new family. But of course, more importantly, there are larger structural issues and demands here. This is more about the demand for the release of everybody who's incarcerated under this unjust system, for the release of over 10,000 Palestinian hostages inside Israel's occupation jails, and obviously an immediate end to the genocide and the largest ongoing blockade in modern history of nearly 2 million Palestinians who've survived through 19 months of this genocide. Before I thank everyone and thank our staff and our wonderful guests for being here, I want to bring your attention to one of our interns of this incredible cohort, Sireen Haddad, who's had her diploma revoked for her from Virginia Commonwealth University simply for organizing a peaceful sit-in on campus. Sireen Haddad is a summa cum laude student with a 4.0 GPA and with a stellar record, who I don't just say this because she's our intern, but all she did was organize a sit-in on one of the campus squares, and for that, her and other students are having their diplomas withheld. So we ask you to please contact VCU's administration and demand that both Serene and the other students have their diplomas revoke this unjust decision. And I want to give a special appreciation for Kay over here for taking the time to come down to us in DC. Welcome back to our incredible audience, for sticking around for so long, and my backbone here at the Jerusalem Fund, our staff and interns, who without them this event would not have been possible. So thank you so much, and thank you all for sticking around.